everybody, and welcome to episode 150 of Board Game Breakfast. I'm Tom Vassell, and I'm here to talk about board games along with a bunch of other people. We hope you enjoy the show. This is kind of a normal episode of Board Game Breakfast, nothing big and fireworks planned for episode 150, although I am bringing back a segment that many of you have been asking for a while. But there's a lot of things to talk about. I should mention the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund auction is going on. I mentioned it last week, but there's still time to bid on things, to add things, and just to promote it and tweet about it and Facebook people about it. And for all those who have done so, a big heartfelt thank you from me to you. I'll be doing a live Q&A today at noon Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to talk and ask questions then, that's a good time for that. And really, other than that, well, let's get to the news. So in the news, Games Workshop's going to be introducing some build and paint series. Basically, this is where you'll be able to buy some miniatures, and in the box this is for, I think, Warhammer 40,000, you get some Space Marines or whatever, but you also get the brushes and you get the paint. So if you've always wanted to get into the painting side of thing, these sets are going to be for you. Come on. I don't know if it's supposed to be calling them Kuman or not, or come on at this point. But they have, or Simana, it's just very confusing. Anyway, they've announced a few new games. Actually, they showed these off at Gen Con this year, but they've officially announced Geekado. This is a dice rolling game that comes with robot miniatures. Now, it originally looks like it was about dragons, this game, but now it's robots. And I've seen these robots. They really look beautiful. That looks like it's coming out in January. And then later on in June, a game called Chronia. This is a simultaneous selection style game where you're trying to get the favor of the gods. Conan, there will be some expansions for Conan. They just sent it out to all the Kickstarter backers. We're hoping to have a review of that up at some point in time. But there's some expansions where they're going to add some for the Dungeon Master and some for the players. So we got the Crossbowmen and then Yago of Yag. Anyway, an expansion for Exodus, Proxima Centauri, called Event Horizon. This is going to have 10 modules in it, so that's interesting. You'll be able to pick which modules you want. They're really, really going down this route. Exodus, Proxima Centauri, which we call TI3 Lite, although if the more they add to it, maybe it will just be a competitor with TI3, has leaders and jump gates and Centaurian outposts. Cubicle 7 has announced a Doctor Who card game, which is going to make a lot of people happy because Doctor Who is a cool license, right? But not everyone does a really good job with this license. Hopefully Cubicle 7 will do so. 2 to 4 player game. It looks like you are a companion of the Doctor in it. This is news I did not expect to be announcing. WizKids has hooked up with Lookout Games in the accordance the game Agricola. They'll be making 6 expansions. Well, modules, or I don't know what these are exactly. They're going to add some more cards to Agricola, but then they're going to add pre-painted miniatures for the farmers. Now, I'm still mind-boggled that all this is happening with Agricola. That's like, oh, well, let's keep expanding Agricola and Agricola. I know Agricola is a very popular game, but it seemed to me like Caverna would just run right over it. But possibly it's because there's nothing else coming for Caverna, and they're still running with Agricola. But did people really think Agricola needed pre-painted miniatures? I mean, it's not going to stop me from certainly checking these out, but it just was kind of a surprise. Also, that it was with WizKids. So they're not clicks, by the way. They're just normal miniatures. Upper Deck has announced Legendary Marvel Noir. Again, I'm not sure who's asking for this. Now, I like Marvel Legendary as much as the next person. But I mean, really, how obscure are we going to get here? I know that was a lot of people like this very short-lived comic book series. But why are they going to these obscure comic book series when there's still major superheroes in the universe that they haven't done yet? Who knows? And then apparently F2Z Games is now called Asmodee Canada, which is kind of funny because we have Asmodee North America and Asmodee Canada. Should it be Asmodee USA and Asmodee Canada? I'm a little confused on that. But definitely F2Z, the transition, we talked about how they were being planned to be bought by Asmodee. That is finished. But I will tell you that when we went to Essen, we have hundreds of games coming from Essen, and from Asmodee, I would say to maybe 15 out of those hundreds of games. So do not worry, it is not the end of the world. There are still many, 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 many great games out there. And that doesn't even include Kickstarter, of which Suzanne is now going to talk.
Happy breakfast, everybody. Some of my favorite things about board gamers are that we are community-oriented and generous of spirit. Along with the phenomenal Jack Vassell Memorial Fund auction that's going on right now, I wanted to let you know that Maggie Bott from Board Game Blender, Stephanie Straw from Throat Punch Lunch, and I are all on an Extra Life team together fundraising for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. So after you bid up on all the cool things that are available in the Jack Vassell auction, please take a second to check out our fundraising page for Extra Life to see if you can help us out. Thank you so much. All right, let's take a look at what's happening in our crowdfunding world today. COG, which stands for the Cabinet of Gadgetry, is the latest game from Dr. Finn's Games. This is a unique combination of a crossword and worker placement game, as players compete to collect letters to spell words. The words are defined by goal cards, so this isn't a vocabulary-dependent kind of game. Workers or cogs are used to gather letters, movement dice, or power cards, or to determine player order. As you collect letters to spell words on the goal cards, you'll be building up those words on your personal player board crossword style, and finished goal cards net you bonus points. Power cards offer up all sorts of special abilities, and star tiles can turn letter tiles into wilds, offering you flexibility on your board. As with all of Dr. Finn's campaigns, you can add on any of their other games, but a copy of COG takes a pledge of $45. The Edge Dawnfall is an ambitious tactical minis board game designed by Mikkel Orch that has a campaign board that changes permanently throughout the different storylines. The game has up to 6 different factions, each with unique strengths and all with huge minis. Besides the mini size, their bases vary in size as well, which impacts how they interact on the board because larger ones can push around smaller ones. And the conflict board itself is composed of small and large hexes, which create some uncommon movement options. But there's also a campaign map board in which the ongoing scenarios have lasting effects between the unique storylines as cities get destroyed and creatures level up. The game scales based on how many faction boxes you have, but at the base, with one faction box, you can play against the game itself. Add in another faction, and you can skirmish against an opponent or go co-op against the game, and so on. There is a lot going on in this campaign between the factions and add-ons, so if you're interested in The Edge Dawnfall, definitely read about the game modes, faction boxes, and pledge levels really carefully. But the basic pledge starts at £45 plus shipping for a single faction, all the way up to £250 plus shipping. That includes all the factions, but it doesn't include the vast numbers of boss and terrain add-ons. Artana Games is bringing us Einstein, a tile-laying game inspired by the famous scientist that strays away from traditional tile shapes. Players take on the role of Einstein at different ages and will have unique goals to complete based on that age. Different tile shapes represent different areas of study like physics and philosophy, and players will build up a free-form central shared tile area called the Big Idea. As tiles are played, if they complete a pattern on a personal idea card or public theory card, the player scores it. But if you use another player's tile to do so, they get points too. The cards include fun trivia facts about Einstein, and the game features art from the ever-talented Kwanchai Moria. You can get a copy of Einstein for a pledge of $24 plus shipping. In Spires, players take on the role of builders trying to impress royalty with the towers they build, but you can't exceed the height of the royal's palace, of course. 3 cards high is perfect, but anything higher will hit you with negative points. Players use market cards to blind bid on which tower card they want each round, but if 2 players bid on the same market, they compete using their Spire cards, and the winner takes all of the cards and must add them to their tableau, which isn't always good. Special cards like architects and scrolls impact the gameplay, and guild symbols on the cards count towards set collection points at the end of the game. Spires features really cool art style, and the base game takes a pledge of just $15 plus shipping. But the deluxe version, which includes more scroll cards, takes a pledge of $20 plus shipping. And finally, I don't usually include RPGs in this coverage, but I have to mention No Thank You Evil, The Adventures Continue from Monty Cook Games. No Thank You Evil is the Emmy Award-winning RPG designed especially for families with younger children that takes advantage of their imaginations and creativity. The Adventure Continues contains 2 expansions. Uh-Oh Monsters contains a new monster manual, 3 new adventures to explore, and more creature cards and standees. And Story Please is actually an adventure-building deck of cards that can be mixed and matched for all sorts of free-form scenarios using the No Thank You Evil RPG system. No Thank You Evil is a fun, inclusive, and beautiful way to introduce kids to the world of RPGs. The Adventure Continues expansion takes a pledge of $50, but to get the base game and expansion, it takes a pledge of 90 well-spent bucks. All right, that's all I've got for you this episode. Hopefully something caught your eye. And until next time, I hope you have an epic week.
All right, we have a question today, folks. I'm Tom Vassell.
Jason Levine.
And this question is, they said that they're noticing there's a lot of second editions of games coming out. You know, we're seeing Match of the Madness second edition, and they just announced Kingsburg second edition, blah, 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 blah. Is this a trend, and what games need it?
Well, I guess it's a trend. I mean,
it's been a trend since games have come out.
Yes. I mean,
Panzer Blitz 2.
Yes, or like Advanced Squad Leader. I mean, it's always been something where they make a few rule changes. As Tom would say, if a game is worth printing and it's out of print, it will come back in print again. Now, a lot of times when they do come back in print nowadays, instead of just reprinting the game straightforward like it was, they'll add a little twist or a little tweak here and there, and it becomes the second edition or the third edition.
Well, sometimes, though, the second edition has some major changes that make it so much better. Like, for example, Through the Ages. That second edition is really good. Mansions of Madness, the whole game has changed with the second edition.
Because of the app.
Right, and so I don't really have a problem with companies coming out with second editions and stuff. It doesn't mean that your first edition is garbage. Now, the only time a first edition to a second edition can be problematic is if there's a lot of expansions.
Yes.
All right, so you're like, oh, I want to buy this, and oh, there's expansions. You get the expansions, then they come out with a second edition. Now all expansions go with that second edition, and you have the first edition. You're like, I want to buy that expansion, but too bad. But again, it still doesn't diminish your product, and usually a company does a kind of a rolling out replacement of those. There are some companies that put out second editions like within 365 days of the first one, and that I'm not as keen on that, especially if there's a lot of changes made.
No, either am I. I mean, the thing that I find the most problematic is I don't have enough shelf space for both my first and second edition, which for most games I'll have both editions on my shelf, and I'm like, oh, a second edition.
I just keep the better one. All right, so what games need a second edition? Well, while you're thinking, I'll say Tikal needs a second edition.
Tikal 2 already came out.
Tikal 2 and Tikal are two different games.
Yes,
they're not even close. No, but I would like to see Tikal. We just saw Mexico come back, and so I'd like to see Tikal. A second edition of that one would be nice. I'd like to see a third edition of Dungeon Twister.
I'd like to see a second edition of Star Wars: The Queen's Gambit, but not Star Wars Risk, but actually Star Wars: The Queen's Gambit, like the Meteor game. I'd like to see come back as a second edition, even if it's themed in like Episode 7, and it would be like Star Wars Rey's Gambit or something.
What if it wasn't themed Star Wars at all, but it was the same style game?
I'd still like it, but the Star Wars theming just adds so much more. I mean, the style's already good in that game, and Star Wars adds to it.
All right. Well, anyway, tell us in the comments, what games do you think need second editions? What do you think about second editions in general? Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
Jason Levine.
Welcome to the 101. One of the biggest games to come out recently is Mechs and Minions. With beautiful painted heroes and a great painted boss, but all the minions aren't painted. Well, I'm going to show you how to paint them real fast so you can get them done in just a couple hours. It's really easy. First thing you're going to need is to go out and get some really good Citadel Mephiston Red. From there, spray them, and let's take a look down at the table on how to finish them up real quick. Now, as you can see, the Mephiston Red does a great job and great coverage. That's why you want to get a better paint. So let's take a look at the other colors that we're going to put on. Next thing we want to do is put in the black into the facial area. Next, we add a little lead belcher on the armor and the axe. Next, we add in the white for the headdress and, of course, the eyes. After that, we just add a very pale blue for the hands. And as you can see, with just 3 easy steps, you've got yourself painted minions, just like on the cards. Very simple, very easy, and very quick to do. And you could get a ton of them done very, very quickly. Well, let's head up top and get on out of here. There you have it. Quick, easy, and fun. That's the most important thing. Until next time, I'm Rob Warren. We'll see you soon.
Hey folks, so what's coming from the Dice Tower this week? Well, we're going to finally finish our reviews on Seafall. So we've already done some first impression, second impression, third impressions. We're now going to review it as a whole. I'm also going to be taking a look at Game of Thrones, the board game. You'll see the new Star Wars collectible dice game. We'll be talking about that. Four Gods, Eon's End, Macroscope, Spyfall 2. So there's quite a few things that you're going to see review-wise from us. There's also going to be Best of the Month is going to be coming out this week. And we're going to continue on with the People's Choice Top 100 Games of All Time. So there's a lot of different videos coming out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's continue on.
Hey, Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise here. And you know, they say that our sense of smell is one of the strongest triggers of memory. And this is true for both the pleasing and unpleasing scents that cross our nasal receptors. Which is one reason why the mere memory of a board gaming event that's unfortunately filled with odorous attendees can leave one with a bad taste in their mouth about the hobby. Figuratively speaking, of course. Well, the mother of invention has heard our pleas and answered in the form of +5 deodorant, the friendly fumigant specially designed for gamers, which, as of the time of this recording, is currently running on Kickstarter. Now, before I go any further, this is not an ad or endorsement for +5 Deodorant's Kickstarter. They haven't paid or given me anything. Additionally, on the other side of the coin, I'm not mocking their Kickstarter either. In fact, you'll get no complaints here. Well, maybe one complaint. When the makers of +5 were asked, "What does your deodorant smell like?" their answer was, well, it's hard to describe a smell. We have a combination of scents to help people find what they like. Not a great explanation. And you are absolutely right, +5. That is not a great explanation. In fact, it stinks as badly as an unbathed power gamer after their third all-nighter at Gen Con. And what's worse is that you're missing an excellent opportunity here. The answer is literally right under your nose. All you have to do is ask yourself, what would a board gamer want to smell like? What gamer wouldn't want the opportunity to smell like miniatures? And for those willing to pay a premium price, pre-painted miniatures. Waterproof card sleeves would not only be an alluring scent to CCG players, but would be a thematic slam dunk for an antiperspirant. The status-minded among us could flaunt their prestige by smelling of IKEA shelves. Ah, IKEA fresh. And personally speaking, I would pay real money to coat myself in the scent of freshly opened packs of Magic the Gathering cards. In fact, I already do. So there you go. There's some helpful unsolicited tips +5 deodorant for gamers. Now, even if this aromatic advice doesn't help provide your Kickstarter with a few more dollars, I hope it does provide you with a few more cents.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another segment of Board Gaming with Colleagues with To Die For Games. I'm Mandy, the board gaming pinup girl.
I'm Tracy, the gaming maven.
And I'm Steph, the games teacher. I'm craving me some nigiri. We should go for sushi because it's
Lunchtime! So today we are taking a look at Sushi Go Party. The game was created by Phil Walker Harding, published by Game Right Games, plays in about 20 minutes for 2 to 8 players.
The objective of the game is to be the one to make the sushi that gives you the most points over 3 rounds.
In Sushi Go Party, a number of different varieties of sushi and desserts will be available for you to pick from in order to make your ultimate sushi meal.
Sounds delicious. I actually have the original Sushi Go, and I almost kind of want to switch out for this one because it has the board and some other really fun treats. What do you guys think?
Well, the biggest thing I like about this is the fact there are 8 or 10 different ways you can lay out, like pull the different cards. So some
Right.
are more competitive, some are more point related, some are more family friendly, and that is what makes me prefer this one over the original.
Right.
I agree completely. It's more flexible, gives you more gameplay opportunities. I really enjoy Party.
Yeah. So party, exactly. Fun times. I think we're gonna stick with mine for now. We'll just borrow their copy during lunch break. So better get to it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
So every year we go to a lot of conventions. And then at some point in time, I have to decide what conventions we're going to go to the following year. It was so easy for the first years of the Dice Tower. I went to Origins, and it was very exciting. And Origins was exciting and fun to go to, and every time I went to Origins, I was extremely sad to leave it. It was the one convention I went to. I made friends that I would talk to and meet the following year. When I moved to America, I was able to up the number of conventions that I went to. And that was kind of cool, and as time gone by, we continue to raise the number of conventions with more people involved in the Dice Tower. Some people can go to convention and not all of us do. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit because I'm putting together our convention schedule for 2017. It's time to do that. How do we pick what conventions to go to? What's the criteria for going to a convention for the Dice Tower? Well, first of all, there are some conventions that at this point in time are must-goes. Gen Con and Essen are at the top of the list. Well, technically, Dice Tower Con's at the top of the list. Okay, that's just a given. That's our convention, so yes. But then right after that is Essen and Gen Con. There are tons of games released at these. All the publishers go to these for the most part. There's a few that don't, but for the most part they go. And even though both conventions are very exhausting, not only do we get to talk to tons of publishers and see lots of new games, but we also see the largest number of people who watch and listen to our show at Gen Con and Essen. They are by far the most expensive conventions we go to. Combined, they are more expensive for the Dice Tower to attend than all the rest of the conventions put together. But it is what it is. It's still a useful thing for us to go to. When it comes to after that, it's pretty easy. It's the Gamma Trade Show. The Gamma Trade Show is not an open convention. It's just a convention for people in the industry, and there's a lot of distributors and retailers go there, and manufacturers and designers, and we do a lot of live streaming from there to help you guys out, and so that's definitely one that we like to go to also. And that one's on my schedule. And then right after that, because they're from the same organization and we also do a lot of streaming from there, we have Origins. So this past year, you saw us, we streamed from Origins also. So those would be the big 5 conventions. We got Dice Tower, Essen, Gen Con, Origins, and Gamma. And those 5 conventions I mark off on the schedule as time goes by. After that, everything is fair game. Now, for the last several years, we've consistently also gone to Board Game Geek Convention, although it's getting harder and harder for us to justify that. In fact, in 2017, it's not on my schedule to go. Not because I don't like going. I really enjoy Board Game Geek Con. It's just that it's an expensive convention for us to go to, and we don't really get a lot out of the convention per se on a work basis. It's more of a vacation for us than anything else. And because it's so close in time of the year to Dice Tower Cruise, that will likely be something we go on every year. So I can see Board Game Geek Convention going off into the sunset. There's a lot of other people who are going to go to it anyway, so no loss for them with us not being there. And we won't miss publishers being there because we'll run into many of those same publishers at Essen. After that, there's a lot of different small conventions that we go to. Sam and Z went to the West Texas Tabletop Convention. We went up to a small convention in Connecticut. We've gone to conventions. We've gone to Total Con. We've gone to Grand Con. And we get invited to actually quite a few different conventions that we have the opportunity to possibly go to. We can't go to all the conventions. We simply would like to, even if they were free, right? Let's say every convention we went to was free, everything was paid for, us going there, our meals and lodging, we still couldn't go to them. Because if we went to conventions all the time, we wouldn't actually review. There's a certain popular fantasy author who has not yet finished books that people are waiting for him to finish. And many of the criticisms levied against this fantasy author are the fact that he's always at conventions and stuff. And I'm not here to speak against this person because I don't know. I just know what the public image is of this person always going to conventions and things. And I know that if we went to conventions all the time, well then how would we ever do reviews? We have Board Game Geek Con coming up and Dice Tower Cruise coming up after that. So we have to work extra hard the weeks before and stuff to make sure that videos are coming out throughout these weeks. So we can't go to everything, so we have to pick and choose. And because of that, what we've done with the smaller conventions is we will say, okay, we won't usually go to them back to back from year to year. If we go to it one year, we won't go to it the next year because we're trying to spread the love. Now, sometimes there's exceptions to that. Different things will happen. But for the most part, like we went to Grand Con last year, but we did not go this year because, back to back. And I will say a convention that's on the cusp of being one that we will always go to is the UK Gaming Expo. We have definitely made plans to go there. We went this year in 2016. We've signed up essentially to go in 2017. So that will be a lot of fun to go to that too. But that's another one that's permanently on the list. Well, then what do I do with all these other conventions? I like to go to PAX. I like to go to the New York Toy Fair or the Chicago Toy Fair. I like to go to Nuremberg Convention in Germany. I like to go to the Japan hobby ones. There's a lot of different conventions. So on one aspect, I would love to hear from you guys and say, hey, Dice Tower guys, we wish you would show up at PAX East. We wish you would show up here. That'd be great for us to know where there's kind of a rumbling of where people would like us to go. But it also depends on where it fits in our schedule. For example, PAX East is usually the weekend right before or right after the Gamma Trade Show. So to go from one and then fly to the other, that can be kind of a difficult process, which is why we've never done it. On the other hand, there's the MeepleCon, which happens in Las Vegas right after Gamma Trade Show. And since all we have to do is take a taxi to go from one to the other, we went there last year, and there's a good chance we'll go there this year. When little conventions contact us, we will often require things, maybe some payment, maybe for us to be flown there and stuff. And you say, Vassal, you guys are throwing your weight around, and I don't ever mean it to be that way. We do that because we need to weed some of them out. And also because for us to travel to all these conventions is a pretty hefty expense on us. There's a lot of expenses the Dice Tower has, and one of our biggest expenses is traveling to conventions, taking with us all of our stuff and suitcases and shipping it there, and not to mention the time away from work. When we go to a convention, we have to work extra hours the week before or the week after. That being said, if you're ever interested in us coming to your convention, I will certainly consider it. But you know when you should contact me about that? Now. Many times we get contact about conventions a month before they happen, and that simply is impossible. I'm working and putting my schedule together now for 2017. It's the end of October, beginning of, to guess today's the last day of October, but there are 2 months and we go into the next year, and so there's a lot going on. And it doesn't seem fair sometimes. Why don't you ever come to this part of the country? Why don't you go to this part of the world? Well, again, we'd love to go to all of them. It's simply not possible, so we will try to spread out as much as we can and to go to different conventions. The good news for you guys is there's not many great conventions out there that you can go to. They're all over the place. Don't feel like you have to go to all of them. You can just go to a few of them. Anyhow, like I said in the comments, we'd love to hear from you guys as to what conventions you think we should go to that we're not currently going to. I'm certainly not promising we're going to go to the one where the most people ask for, but it certainly gives me ideas. And if you are running a convention and are interested in us coming, let me know sooner rather than later. Or maybe you don't want us to come. Well, let me know that too. Anyhow, let's keep going.
Hi guys, this man is Willem Alexander, and together with his wife Maxima Zorregieta, they are king and queen to the Netherlands, and parents to the princesses Amalia, Alexia and Ariane. There's always a discussion on the price of having a royal family. There is the price of the palaces, the restoration of the golden coach, the secret tax reductions and summer resorts. But right now, discussion has shifted to the income the oldest daughter, Princess Amalia, will receive when she turns 18. 250,000 euros, just because she was born an heir to the king. This week I am playing a majestic game that comes at a very decent price. One that is designed by someone with probably noble French blood. This week I am playing Bruno Cathala's King Domino. In King Domino, you try to expand your kingdom and try to have the right combination between crown symbols and tiles that match the same terrain type, all to score the most points. Each round you draw as many tiles from the box as there are players and sort them by number. The highest number tiles are considered the best. You flip them over and the player who has the worst tile in the current round gets to choose which tile he wants next round. You place the tiles adjacent to at least one matching side or your castle tile. And before you know it, you're in the next round. The game plays very quick. Your kingdom may not exceed a 5x5 grid. How does scoring work? Well, at the end of the game, you score the points for each area. You multiply the amount of crowns in an area with the size of that area. The game is very simple, but the mechanic feels so great that you always have an interesting choice to make. My family has embraced this game. We have played it in restaurants and even the grandparents have joined in. A very big thumbs up from me for King Domino. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Hi friends, my name is Niels from Cyril's Brettspiele, and today in my best and worst segment I'm showing you Unfair. A really unfair or fair game, or unfair, fair. Anyway, let's take a closer look. See you. My favorite part on Unfair is exactly the name. To be honest, not exactly the name, but the theme. I really like fun parks, I really like theme parks, I really like fairs. That is great. And building your own park, wow, what a great idea. I mean, it's obviously not the newest idea. We had that in Theme Park on the PC before. However, it really feels good to put upgrades to your thrill rides, to make another loop, to do things like that, to get employees, to get blueprints, to get some city fundings and all of that stuff. It feels so good. It plays so well. It is so good. And the unfair part of Funfair. So, fun fact on that, Funfair and unfair. So the unfair part, this take that, is exactly the right dose I like. So you can poke a little bit your opponent, but you cannot throw him out of the game. So you can tackle him a little bit to hinder him from getting a straight victory, but it's, wow, it's great. It's really great. And it feels well, it plays well, everything is fine. There's a little bit of a downtime for me, and that is exactly the word I'm using, downtime. It's technically a little bit too long for what it is. I understand that you have to build your engine first and have to build your income, but 8 rounds is a little bit too long for me for unfair, for what it is really like, the real nature of the game. You should reduce the game, the playing time a little bit to streamline it and make it a little bit more fun for everybody. Then in this case it would be a funfair and not unfair. That was my personal favorite on Unfair and the thing I don't like on it as well. See you next week on Cyril's Brettspiele. My name is Niels. Bye bye.
Hey folks, welcome back to What's on the Shelf. This is a series that I did last year, and I decided that for episode 150 we would start it up again. And each week I'm going to show you one of my shelves and show you the games on that shelf and tell you why I kept it. So here we're going to take a look at part of the top part of the Calyx shelves that I have, where games don't fit in everything else. Why am I keeping these games? And why is Pie Face up there when it so obviously could fit on one of my shelves? And that's because my kids are constantly borrowing it for youth group. That's why it's there. Why do I have Pie Face? Because my kids are constantly using it for youth group, so that's why it's there. And it's a silly game to pull out. Devastation of Indine's underneath it, BattleCon, or I think War of Indines is also inside that box. It's a great 2-player game. Really enjoyed that one. I probably could fit that on one of my other shelves, and I'm just going to have to figure out how to do so in the future. Pandemic Legacy is up there also. That could probably fit on one of my other shelves, but I've been playing that with my family. So another reason it's so high is that so nobody tries to get into it to figure out the secrets. I've already gone through Pandemic Legacy, but now my family's going to be going through it one at a time. League of Legends is a great game. Really enjoy that. I've talked a lot about it this year. It's a giant game with lots of miniatures and definitely instantly in my collection. That's why it's up there. Defenders of the Last Stand is kind of a reworking of Defenders of the Realm. It's set in a post-apocalyptic future. I'm not usually a big post-apocalyptic one, but I did like Mad Max, and this had a strong Mad Max and a very strong story. So I was really glad to add this one to my collection. And underneath that's a weird game you probably haven't seen before, Die Schlachter Dinosaur. Do you realize that game's full of plastic dinosaurs and people riding dinosaurs and fighting each other? I believe this game only came out in German, and you know, I'm a little ashamed to say I still haven't played the game. A listener sent that to me, so now that we're looking at it, talking about it, I really should get that one played and see just how fun it is. Well, folks, for this week, that's what's on the shelf.
Hi, my name's Dave Adams and welcome to Good Game Better Gamers. I've been spending a bit of time talking about the idea of mastery and how it can take our understanding of a game as well as our enjoyment of a game to the next level. Now, mastery has a lot more applications and specifically in the fields of creativity. World-renowned author and psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi did a lot of work in this concept of flow, which has relationship to gaming, but isn't what I actually want to focus on. Look at the research he did into the concept of flow by looking at the anecdotal evidence of people he considered to be big C creatives. Now, he says there's little c creativity, which we experience in everyday life and we even experience in our own lives. He says that there are people we meet daily who are creative people, but the big C creative people are people who have made such a contribution to their community that the community has not only acknowledged what they've done as being creative, but has changed the way they view the world because of their creativity. Now, for instance, in the domain or field of science and mathematics, Albert Einstein was a creative person, but he's a big C creative because not only did the field acknowledge his work as being creative, but his work has formed and shaped how people view maths and science for years to come, and in fact, long after his death. Now, Csikszentmihalyi's work shows that to actually be a creative person, you have to be someone who has mastery in that field. So you actually have to understand how that field works and operates before you can think outside of the box and in a creative and innovative way. In terms of board gaming, I think there are people who fit that big C creative simply because not only has their work been received well and considered by other experts in the field as creative, but the way that they've created games, the games they've created, have formed and shaped how we view games for years to come. Now that we've spent some time talking about mastery, I want to actually start to explore some of the qualities of these big C creatives, and I want to do it by looking at some people who I think are big C creatives. We're going to get into some of that next week. So until next time, I'm Dave Adams. Enjoy your breakfast.
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. Paperback is one of my favorite word games because it cleverly includes a deck building element. Well, now this innovative word game is available in app form for both iOS and Android. So let's take a quick look. In Paperback, cards have a letter or letter combo that you want to play together to form words. Each card adds some income to your money pool so that you can buy more cards, some of which have special abilities, so that you can build better words to get even more money so that you can eventually buy wild cards that are worth victory points. So Paperback is a word game that rewards not just good vocabularies, but also smart tactical choices on how you build your letter deck and when you stop doing that and start buying victory points. The Paperback app is a good-looking implementation that includes a lot of the must-have features of a top-tier app. There's a tutorial that you can access as needed that teaches you the game and interface. Pass and Play works quite well, and there are 3 levels of AI that you can play solo against. At the time of this segment, the app didn't have online play, but the designer Tim Fowers has said that it's in development and it will allow cross-platform play when it's implemented. I also really like the feature that you can adjust the length of the game by altering the number of books in the score piles. Overall, the Paperback app does a great job of retaining the pulpy charm of the card game. The developer and designer have been actively addressing questions and bugs within the app, and I always appreciate active app support. and I have confidence that the app will continue to be improved and enhanced over the next few releases. But out of the gate, Paperback is a great implementation of a great game. And even though online play isn't quite ready yet, I definitely recommend you give this app a try.
Hello, my name's Dan, and this is Cora, and we're here today to talk to you about board games for children of around 5 and under. Today we're going to talk to you about this game. What is it, Cora?
Pengaloo.
Pengaloo! Pengaloo is a nice and simple memory game which stands out from the crowd because of its really nice components. On their turn, a player rolls 2 dice to find out what colours they'll be looking for. Then they're allowed to look under 2 of the nesting penguins. If the eggs they find match one of the dice, then they get to keep that egg, and the winner is the first to find 6 eggs. It's a particularly good memory game to play with 2 players because rolling the dice means that the colour you're looking for from one turn to the next is pretty random. And that means you don't get the issue of the opposing player just picking up whatever you've just put down, quite so much as you do with other memory games. So, it's certainly no yoke to say that Pengaloo is an all-white game. In fact, it's excellent. It's so cracking that I'll be mentioning it to all my friends. It's certainly left us feeling sunny side up, and is not one I'm letting go. It's well worth shelling out for, and I'm sure it'll be a long time until we've had a nerf of it. So, Cora, what do you think of Pengaloo?
I like kind of all the different colours, and 2 of them is my favourite colour.
Which 2 are your favourite colour?
Orange and red.
Orange and red, so the two little eggs. And what else do you like about it?
I like all the penguins.
Yeah.
They're really hard to tell because they look all the same.
They look all the same, so you can't tell what's under what, can you? Yeah, it's a really good memory game, and it's got really nice components. These wooden penguins are really nice. Don't taste very nice, though. Do you want to taste? Okay. So, Pengaloo, really good memory game. Lovely components, nice eggs. We give it 2 thumbs up.
Well, I did it. I really did it. I went out there. I got on a train. I booked a hotel. I went into in the real world. I went to a place where other board gamers would be. I stood outside and waited in the cold for half an hour whilst I ran out of people to call on my phone before I timidly went in, and it was awful. Just awful, really awful. I politely nodded at people I'd been in contact with online. I circled the convention centre like some kind of chronically ill shark, or like an estranged dolphin, I guess. And then I went back to my hotel room and sat in silence for an hour. You know, I went back in and I got talking to some people. Breacher 18 and the Broken Meeple got me talking to other humans, and they were nice. Everyone was kind of nice. I don't really know. I played a game with a guy called Martin. Who's Martin? I don't know, some stranger. Played a game. He was nice. So what can you do? I got myself into a 3-hour game of Feast for Odin. Spoiler alert. I kind of dig it. But it was good. And I didn't think it was going to be. So, in my face, I guess? Does that work? You know, it's not easy. In fact, it's exhausting. But for me, at least, this time, putting myself out there and meeting people really paid off. So I would urge you that if you have a desire to go out and meet people and play games, then you should give it a go, because I met some good humans, which I didn't expect. And I had a really good time. So well done, humans. Some of you aren't terrible. I'll see you next week.
Well, that's the end of another episode. Man, games are just piling up here. I'm like, we got to get games planned. And then, well, I got to go out and hand out a whole pile of candy here tonight. So there's that. But there's a lot of games to be played. We are trucking through them as fast as we can. Our boxes of games from Essen look like they're going to show up this week. And even before they land, we have a lot. So be patient with us. I know there's a lot of games you'd love to see reviewed. We're trying to get through them and review them as much as possible. I got a pile over here. I got piles over there. I got piles over there. It's coming. It's coming. The reviews are coming. But live Q&A today at noon. I hope to talk to several of you there. And I hope to see you guys again next week. Don't forget, Week in Review comes out the same time this does. It's a video where we take a look at all the reviews we did last week. And there's other shows in our network and all sorts of things that you can see. You can find all the information at dicetower.com. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast on the Dice Tower.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vassell and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.